Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah, so let's get started here. Yutas Kislev was actually the year, yeah, Yutas Kislev is Chag HaChagim, the Chag Ula of and Rosh Hashanah Chassidus and Chag Ula of the Alter Rebbe, right? And specifically Yutas Kislev was when the day that the Alter Rebbe was free from prison. It was on Tuesday, which is the third day of the week, which Yom Shehachval by Kitayv, and in the section of Tehillim of the third day, when it's divided in 7, is as he was being released, or when he got the news, he said Pada B'Shalom, and yeah. And then basically the idea is here, Mil Chol Yom Shabbos Kosher Fanav B'Tesvav Kislev. Oh yeah, so Erev Shabbos of the Shabbos before Yutas Kislev was Tes Zayin Kislev, and then Erev Shabbos was Tesvav Kislev. And then and the reason why we're figuring that out is because Misha Tarach B'Shabbos Yechol B'Shabbos, right? If somebody works hard to prepare for Shabbos, he will eat and enjoy and appreciate and have the pleasure of enjoying Shabbos. So Tesvav Kislev was Erev Shabbos, Tes Zayin Kislev was Shabbos, and Yutas Kislev was Tuesday. So obviously everything is Bashgacha Partes and very specific. So there obviously has to be connection between all of these 3 days, and the bracha, and basically the fact that Yutas Kislev falls out in the time where the moon is bigger while it's getting smaller the second half of the month. So which is very different than in many other Yom Tovim. Oops, somebody's here. I did not notice that. Hi, Rachi. Sorry, I didn't. Hi. Okay. Rachi, can you hear us? Still connecting. Okay. So basically, if we're going to compare Chag HaChagim, Yutas Kislev, Rosh Hashanah Chassidus to all the other Yom Tovim, which most of the Yom Tovim fall on like in the middle of the month. So like Tesvav, like Pesach, Sukkot, right? Actually, Shavuos is different. Shavuos is actually the first half of the month, right? Because it's Vav Zayin, not Tesvav to Zayin. So basically, we're going to talk about the idea that Yutas Kislev comes out, which is the second half of the month, versus like when the sun is growing. I mean, not the sun, the moon is growing, or when it's getting smaller. So Valder, and then other really interesting is the Yontif of Chanukah is not like other days, like let's say even Purim, right? Purim is also Yudala Tesvav. And it's basically starts, and most of the days of Hanukkah are in the end of the month of Kislev, right? So it's Chav Hei, Chav Vav, Chav Zayin, Chav Tes, sometimes Lamed. So that's 5 out of 8 days, 4 or 5 out of 8 days. It's at the end of the month. So yeah, but the thing is that it's obviously the end of the month is the moon is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller versus getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it just kind of usually classically, Yontif is in the middle of the month when the moon is the biggest. So we're going to talk about that. ויש דבר תחילת תכן עניין דמיות הלבנה בחצי השני של החדש ביחס לישראל שמיינו לא לבנה. So we have to talk about the idea of the sun, not the sun, keep on saying sun, that the moon is getting smaller the second half of the month. How does that connect to Bnei Yisrael that are compared to the moon? Okay, so we're gonna like try to connect everything here. So we're gonna talk about, I guess, the difference between these, like Yutas Kislev and Chanukah with other Yom Tovim, or like Pesach, Sukkot, Purim, Shavuos also. So first we're gonna like, by way of introduction, where shekevan shebechatzi harishon shel hachodesh ma'asav v'halach are halavana miyam liyam v'chatzi hasheni shel hachodesh pachas v'halach are halavana miyam liyam haya tzarich liyas lachar haminyan halavana b'efen shebechatzi harishon hachodesh yam hayam ma'asav v'halach v'chatzi hasheni shel shani yam manin hayam pachas v'halach. So basically, if the moon is getting bigger and bigger from the beginning of the month, it's getting bigger. Reach halfway point, it's getting smaller. So why doesn't the month go in like a graph, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and then start going down 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 until you get to the smallest beginning, and then it starts again. So why are we continuing to count up for the second half of the month? I know it's a question that I never thought of, but apparently it's aval Liza Bovat Sheminin Hayam Bechatzi Hasheni Shal Chadesh Eni Pachas V'Helach Ela Adar V'Shemesib Helach Min Gam Lagabe Shlemus Yam Teso Shemin Hayam Shalach Teso. So basically here, obviously the numbers get bigger, it doesn't get smaller. Right, so it goes who is on base Mispar, yes or Mispar. Not exactly, there's some sort of technicality about the numbers. Adla Minyan Diama and Shalchadesh, who Haftes comes from Yeser Bad. I'm not really sure what that means. But basically talking about how the numbers are getting bigger. Zaisvad Milvach Hai Safa, the Mispar Dime Chadesh, Mudigash Ha'ilo Gamba Gamatri Vazmane Vaha Ramazim Shabahem. Okay, but then the gematria, it's very interesting because the actual numbers get bigger, but it also talks about like Yud Zayin, Yud Ches, Yud Tes, right? Have very meaningful gematrias. Like Yud Zayin is Taiv, okay, Yud Ches is Chai, okay, Yud Tes is Bitaiv, Chaf Aleph is Ach Taiv Liyisrael. Chaf Beis is B'chayivarach Yisrael. Chaf Gimel is D'Taivai. Chaf Daled is Kidivachad. I don't know what that means. Kidachad Shemeshaitech. Chaf Hey is Kais Varchos B'nai Yisrael. Chaf Vav is Shem Havaya. Right, Mispar Shem Mefarish, the name of Hashem. Chav Zayin is Gematria Zach, which is pure. Chav Ches is Kayach, and then Chav Tes Yimei HaChadesh, Shalashim Chadesh Malekes. Okay, so basically all of these, the following numbers, and by the way, if you want me to translate any of those, I'm happy to. Or you were good. Yeah. So basically, as we see, like there's a the representation of these numbers are very, very, very meaningful. They're very full. They're very like abundant, right? Bright, light, as the moon is getting smaller, there's all this representation and of great things going on in these days. And then specifically Kislev, sometimes it's 29 days, some days it's 30, sometimes it's 30 days. Right? So we have almost like an obligation. This is how it is, that we always go up, Mile and Bakadesh, we go up in holiness, and we never go down, we never shrink in holiness. So this is even more present in the second half of the month, after the moon has reached its completion, and then it keeps on getting stronger and stronger and stronger. That's just a fact, okay? I don't really know how that works because the moon is getting smaller, but there are elements of it that are getting bigger and bigger because we never go down and we never like shrink in holiness, only get bigger and bigger and go higher and higher and higher. So it obviously means that this is the case here. And we just saw an example of how that is with the gematrias of the days. Lahavin Tafana and Yende Mia Talabana Bakhatsi Hashini Shahad Shahariha Mila Vashamas Hai Lachas Maates Miam Liam Shalachara Harzahefach HaKlal de Malan Bakadesh. Alhazgamakamash and married. So we understand, it's granted that we are always growing in Judaism and we're always growing in Torah and we're always growing in the days of the month, obviously. So we're taking that, but we need a little bit more of understanding. We need a little more context. We need a little more of understanding of what it means to how this is represented in the fact that the moon is getting smaller. Okay, we see it in the numbers. We get that it's not getting, we get that the numbers are getting bigger and bigger. Sure, we're happy about that, but we need a little bit more understanding, because it seems like it's against the idea that this moon is getting smaller. It seems like it's against the idea of Mile and Makadesh growing, getting bigger and higher levels, climbing the ranks of holiness. So let's get a little more clarity on that. So now we're up to Ice Yud. I mean, not Yud. I'm not going to touch it. Daled. Would any of you like to read? Okay. Let me just get a drink here. Okay, so I'm gonna start reading here a little, explaining the relationship between the sun and the moon, and yeah, and how it could be that the moon getting smaller is a representation of rising in holiness and getting to the next step, not taking 100 steps forward or 15 steps forward, backwards, or 15, 14 or 15 steps backwards. We're taking steps forward. Okay, so the Yesh Leimer Habeir B'zeh. I actually learned that when I was saying the Yesh Leimer, it's basically, this is almost like a chiddush of the Rebbe, where he's saying, like, let's say that this is the answer here, the explanation. Levan v'chama himakabo mashpia. Dun dun dun. We have the moon and the sun. The moon is the makabal and the sun is the mashpia. Okay. Without the sun, the moon is nothing, right? And it receives light, and it receives light from the sun, right? Umakabelas era mechama v'ifnashpa so batchil makabelas rak ma'atar ma'alad halavana nekuda bavad mi'amayim mesav halach ba'ar. So basically, when it starts, this is like the format and the setup is that in the beginning it gets a tiny little bit of light, which is the birth of the moon, and then every day it gets great. Ma'aseh Vayishlach, there's addition, there's an addition, and it keeps moving forward with more and more and more light that it continues to receive from the sun. Okay, until Tesvav, right, the middle of the month, that Nismale discus shel halavana, which is actually a quote from Bereshis. The moon becomes full and round. Kaime sira b'shleimasa, that's from the Gemara, that it becomes filled. It's interesting because there's a footnote here, miloi halavana, which means it gets filled. She'ikrai miloi hachasar hu miloi ha'gima. Yeah, I'd actually like to come back to that. I didn't exactly understand that explanation there, but basically that it becomes full, right? And it is complete and filled in and not overwhelmed, but like complete with light, and it's receiving everything from the sun. Aval kivan shagam shenismale v'nishlam ar halavana harahu. Okay, so even though it's at its fullest of light, it's still a makabel. So the moon's tachlis hashlemus, right? When we talk about tachlis hashlemus, we're talking about like Mashiach level completion. The Mashiach level completion, the tachlis, the highest ideal state of the moon is not to be a makabel. It's actually to be its own light, right? Like it was when they first got created. Right, you have Shnei Hama'aris Hagdelim. You have the two luminaries, both standing on their own, like in their own greatness. And there's no it's not a makabel. That's not the ideal situation, but right now that's what it is. Yes, Ramasha Shekhishnasmali Arlavana Shemakabel Smehachama Nasa Shlemas Nalas Yes Shalavana He Kamayachama Idea Skalas Darga Nalas Yes Mishneim Shanasas Keser Echad Lashneim Nashlemas Zu Misbates Bahayachas Shabein Alavana Lachama Bachatsia Shin Shachash Gadolakama. So I hope I get this right. When the light of the moon is complete and it completely receives the light from the sun, this in a way is a greater completion to the moon than it would have been if the moon was the same as the sun, because in this process there's a revelation that is greater than both of them. Okay, because we have one crown for both of them. Okay, and this is represented, I guess with the relationship between the moon and the sun. This is basically expressed in like the greatest way in the second half of the month as the moon is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. That's greatness.
Sorry. The last thing this concept is at the end of the month.
What? I didn't understand that connection, honestly. Hello? I think I'm back.
Let's see. I heard that. Oh, there you are.
Hi.
Hi. You were frozen like this for a
Yeah.
while. What was the last thing you said? You said that when the end of the month, as the moon gets smaller, that is what shows this concept.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It says that we explained it before. It says it's expressed, but I didn't really understand the second half of this paragraph. But I guess I don't want to get stuck on it. So hopefully we'll get a little
Okay.
more clarity moving forward.
Okay.
Basically, the idea that they're working together shows something greater and within both of them.
Yeah.
They're sharing
Okay.
a crown. I didn't understand how it's expressed here, to be perfectly
Okay.
honest, but I'm sure we'll get some clarity here. Be'er Hadvarim. So let's explain things a little more. Sibas hashinoi bein chatzi harishon shel hachodesh shemiyam liyam ma'aseh v'halach ar halavana l'chatzi hasheni shel hachodesh shemiyam liyam Parshas Vayishlach. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the difference between the first half of the month and the second half of the month, right? The first half is like going up and the second half is going down and light. Why is this the case? This is actually so powerful. Technically, okay, obviously I'm not a what's it called? I don't know, understand these like scientific pieces of it, but the Rebbe says that when the sun and the moon separate from each other, the moon becomes more bright. So every day the moon gets further away from the sun and gets brighter and brighter and brighter. So that's the first half of the month.
Maybe it has its own. It's less connected to the sun, so we see it less, but it has more of its own power.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not talking. I'm just talking about like the technicalities of scientifically. But Miskareves, the second half of the month, it's constantly getting closer and closer to the sun. And with each step and each additional movement closer to the sun, and each day, the light becomes smaller and smaller.
Wait, so the moon gets smaller as it gets closer to the sun?
Yes.
I don't get it. How is it that it's so interesting? So when it's further away, it gets more actual light from the sun when it's further away from the sun.
Yeah. Okay, so we're actually the next
Interesting.
paragraph. Yeah, it's fascinating. Actually, it's like really incredible. Vatama davar lefisha yachas shabein hamashpia chama v'hamakabel levana hu ba'efen shekisha hamakabel hu b'kirv shemesh hamashpia makabel yachal lashpia la'ayir. Okay, so basically, what the reason for this is because the connection, the what's the word? What does yachas mean? The relationship, the dance that they do together between a mashpia and makabel. When the makabel is very close to the mashpia, the makabel itself is not able to be to give light and to brighten up. The makabel itself can't be a mashpia in any sort of way. And with each movement further away from the mashpia, he's beginning to be able to be mashpia, to impact, to light up. So he receives the light, takes a few steps away, and then can kind of spread that light further.
It seems like a contradiction because
yes,
it says as the moon gets closer to the sun, we see the moon less, so it gets that light for, let's say, 2 weeks because it's more connected to the sun, and then it has 2 weeks where it's further away from the sun, so it gives more light.
I think it's. I'm just gonna pick on your word connection. I think it's just proximity
To the sun.
Yeah. Sorry, but yeah,
Okay.
continue.
Yeah, no, but then we said something else before. And now I forgot. But it seemed like the opposite.
Yes.
Wait,
That
right,
was
because we said that when we don't see the moon, it's actually the moon has more light. We just don't
right.
see it.
Right.
But then this sounds like the opposite, that it's like kind of gaining light over the second 2 weeks. And then in the beginning, Rosh Chodesh till Tesvav, it's illuminating more light that it collected. I don't know. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah. I just want to finish this because it seems like
Okay.
there's a lot. Yeah.
Okay, just
I
go
hear
through
your
it.
question. Yeah. So we're basically like holding like two opposite. What's happening is, like I see it here very clearly. There's like two realities that we're trying to like bring together, like two
Okay.
questions. Like it doesn't, like it's like we're like, oh, it's supposed to be like this. The month is supposed to be like this, right? But it's not. It keeps on going up. But how? Because visually, it's not the reality. So we have to understand what we're seeing. What are we seeing? We're seeing that the moon is moving further away and it's getting more light. So the second half of the month is very powerful because it's getting closer to the sun. I'm even thinking about like how powerful this is in connection to like Nida, because obviously it also goes according to like the cycle of the moon, not necessarily lining up with Rosh Chodesh, but like whatever. So here, let's continue here. V'yesh Leimer Shakir Dalavana Shahacham B'Chatzi Hasheni Shahachodesh Ulay Rak Latzarach Hischatish Yichad Shem. Okay, so the moon getting closer to the sun in the second half of the month. Karev la etzem shelamayla gama erada dachama. So it's getting closer to the sun. And what does it mean when it's getting closer? It's getting closer to the etzem. That is even higher than the light of the sun. Because the sun is just expressing something, but it's not expressing the etzem. It's just expressing regular light. So shakir v'dargazumis mitbate b'miyat ha'ar. So this closeness of getting closer to the sun is expressed in lesser light, right? As the sun is getting closer, what do we see? As the moon is getting closer to the sun, we see less light. Ki ar hu giloy mina etzem. She'etzem hu behelem. Because it is, what is this light? The light is an expression and a representation and a manifestation of etzem, which is hidden. Baraka aram etzem iskabar. So only a teeny tiny sliver, a teeny tiny ha'ara. What's ara? Ara is a little like tiny like piece of it gets expressed. So okay, hi Ma, welcome. Let me just here. Okay, I didn't understand this. It's just a ha'ara, which is a teeny tiny thing of the light from the etzem. So therefore, as the moon is getting smaller and closer, every single day it is getting closer and closer to the etzem, which is higher than light. Because when light is manifested, you can have tons and tons and tons of light coming from the sun. But as the moon is getting closer to the sun and the moon is getting smaller, it's getting closer access to etzem, which the less expression means the higher the light. So, right?
I'm thinking about something, but after you.
Mom, I'm just gonna do try to say this in one sentence, and then you're gonna hop on, Hama. So basically, the beginning, the cycle of the moon, right? Small, big, small, right? So the question is, why doesn't the moon? Why don't we count the days of the month up and then down? Like, but the fact is that the days of the month every day gets higher and higher and higher. But how could it be that if the sun, the light of the sun is getting smaller, the light of the moon is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, the second half of the month, how could it be that it's getting higher in numbers? Like, how is that technically? Like, we're seeing less light, so that means it's less. But what we're explaining here, what the Rebbe is explaining here, is that the sun, the moon gets light from the sun. So at the beginning, the sun and the moon, the beginning of the month, the sun and the moon are very close, and the moon gets a little bit of light from the sun, and every day as it gets further and further and further away, it is able to shine more and more and more light because of its proximity from the sun, and as it's getting further away from the sun, further away from its mashpia, it's able to shine more to others. Because the moon can't be a mashpia when it's very close to the sun. So as the second half of the month, the moon is getting closer and closer and closer to the sun, and as the moon is getting closer to the sun, it's having less access to the revealed light of the sun and more access to the etzem, which is not really able to be expressed and seen. Yeah?
Right, I guess that's the answer why it shines less when it's closer, because it's
Right.
not getting like the actual sun rays or something. It's just too close, so it can't shine through as much. We'll keep going, actually, because I'm gonna.
What were you gonna
back.
say?
No,
Okay.
I want to actually keep going.
Okay. I'm just gonna want to finish this and then we'll.
Yeah.
Well, okay. But I make guess our klasha etzem who behelem va'ar begiloi. Okay, so the thing is the etzem of Hashem is hidden. R is the light is revealed, right? The light is revealed to the sun. So but is the light, the giloi is biyachas lazula. So it's basically on the level of the other person. Okay, it's not on its own. The expression, it's like when I see this a lot, like with teaching, right? Like, or sharing something. When you're sharing something with somebody else, you're only sharing as much as the relationship is, or as much as they're open in the moment, or whatever the energy is with the other person. Shekevan she'enai yachal hakabel etzem el ha'ara mimena bavad lachen kara la'ar la'etzem helem. So basically, whatever the makabel could take, that's what it's going to get. So to the receiver, the R is the R, right, is light, and the helem, and sorry, the light, the teeny tiny snippet that comes out of etzem is considered R, and etzem is helem because they don't see it, right? It's chayshech, it's darkness. But if we're looking at Hashem, how does Hashem see it? It's the exact opposite. The ha'ara, the teeny tiny sliver of light that comes, is chayshech to Hashem.
Compare it to Hashem.
Because it's chayshech in comparison to the etzem of the light.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm just going to finish this here.
I think it's perspective.
Yeah.
It's from which perspective are you looking at it?
Right.
What's the direction you're going?
Mm-hmm.
So the yachas, meaning with the perspective of, are you looking from the yachas to the ma'ar? Are you looking from the yachas of the recipient of the light?
Right. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. מזה שהצורך במיית R כדי להזכר בעצם אין אלא כל הזמן שנשאר בגדר של מציאות ובני עצמי. So the need to have a teeny tiny bit of light in order to connect to the etzem is only when somebody has their own mitzias, right? Mitzias is something else, but when he's connected with the mashpia, he's one with the mashpia. There's no, like, the perspective, excuse me, and the viewpoint is completely different, because they're both the same, right? And once they're both the same, because there's no all of a sudden there isn't that perspective, there isn't that like much like there isn't that like two sides of the table. There could be the two sides of the table. You're one. It's all like together and fused and integrated exactly into one, and then this, wait up, is etzem behiskalas. This is the way that etzem can be revealed. And I'm just one more paragraph here. So hold on. Okay, so then we could say that the lessening of the light in the second half of the month is just lessening the level of the light, right? But which light are we talking about? What's the light that's getting less? The ha'ara, just the teeny light, tiny sliver of light that comes out. That, okay, so if you're, it's like at night when there's like, that's how I envision it, like at night when there's like a teeny tiny like ray of light that comes into your bedroom from like the street light or something. So all of a sudden the street light is like getting, all of a sudden it's like not there anymore, right? It's like, oh my goodness, we're missing so much light. But what light is missing? The teeny tiny stream of light that's coming from the bedroom window that's you can't even read the book. Like you're trying to read a book and you can't read from that light. Like it's not very useful light. I mean, obviously, because so the light as the moon is getting closer to the sun, the light is not able to be seen. Right, as the moon is getting closer to the etzem, but it's not a lessening of the expression, the gilui of the days of the month as it goes higher and the moon becomes smaller, because we're still going Hailech and Maisif, we're still adding and going forward in the Hiskalas of etzem, which is much higher than the teeny tiny Nabach light, that not Nabach, but like whatever that
the rays.
Yeah, the ray of light, exactly. So any comments, questions?
I'm like, we're just putting our tippy toes in. I want to hear more where this
continue?
goes,
Yeah, we can continue, sure.
I mean, I could, I just would have to put off my screen because I have to go do a bunch of things, but I would love to, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. How are you, Ma? You want to continue?
I have a meeting that I have to go to, but I don't think you should stop for me. I will just jump in whenever I can listen. I mean, it's
okay.
It's awesome.
Right. I'm thinking, I just want to like give it a little, like boundaries here, because we can obviously go on forever. So I'm going to give it another 10 minutes.
Yeah, sounds perfect.
Also, because we started a little late, and then we'll figure out how we're going to continue.
Well, either way,
okay.
at the very most, I have something in a half an hour. So
okay, fine.
But yeah, no, you go with how you feel good about it. Like,
yeah, I feel like you had something to say though.
It like came in and then it was like a flash and it was like gone.
Yeah. Okay, fine. So we'll keep going.
But no, because it's like, that's the only thing. I feel like there's so much more that the Rebbe is trying to say, and it's still, I feel like we're still in the question phase of just like beginning.
Yeah, I agree. So we want to like get a little more of the meat, is what you're saying.
Yeah, but look,
Yeah.
you
Let's do
throw
it.
it off at any
I mean,
time.
we can do a lot in the next 10 minutes. Okay.
Okay, so I'm taking off I'm here, okay? I'm just
Okay. ויש לומר שעניין זה מודגש ביתר בהקמי סיר על מוסה תחידש Kislev. Okay, so we're gonna bring,
Connie.
yeah.
I just want to, that expression, kaima siara bahashlamosa, that what you just read is an expression that is used to describe kaima. Sihara is the moon, ba'ashlamosa in its
Completion.
completion.
Yeah,
So
I
it
actually
peaks
looked it
the
up before.
15th day of the month.
Right. Yeah, thank you. The 15th day of the month is when the moon, I know it sounds like I don't understand what it means, but I did look it up before. That's fine. Thank you. Right. So the moon is at its completion in the middle of the month. It has the full light. And when we look at Kislev, there's even much more of a greatness there the second half of the month, right? Like we started off here, Yotes Kislev, Chanukah, etc. So Chodesh Kislev hu Chodesh HaShlishi b'Chodesh HaCharef. It is the third month in the winter. Hamachaven l'Chodesh HaShlishi b'Chodesh HaKayetz. Right? The Chodesh de Matan Torah Miarcha Diltei. ולדגמס בחודש כסלו, החודש של מתן תורה דתרס החסדס, ויתס כסלו שהוא ראש חודש מתן תורה דתרס החסדס. Okay, so the third month of the spring summer is Sivan, and the third month of like the fall winter is Kislev, right? In Sivan we have Matan Torah, and Yotes Kislev, we have Matan Torah of Teres HaChasadas. Actually, never heard this. That, I mean, obviously Yotes Kislev is Rosh Hashanah HaChasadas, but Matan Torah is quite special here. V'ani b'zeh ki yadua shematan Torah hu yom chasunasei hachasuna nisuin da'akadosh baruch hu im knesset Yisrael asher haschala b'zeh hu he ba'ayfen she'akadosh baruch hu hamashpia knesset Yisrael hu makabel aval tachas hashleimus b'zeh he כשהקדוש ברוך הוא כנסת ישראל נעשם חד ממש כביכול, שכנסת ישראל אין צריך כביכול לקהל, והקדוש ברוך הוא כיוון שמסגלה שישראל הקדוש ברוך הוא כל אחד. So this is the day of the Matan Torah is the day of the wedding of the Kadosh Baruch Hu and Knesset Yisrael, and it is the beginning of the Mashpia, right, which is Hashem, and Knesset Yisrael, which is the Makabel. But this, the ultimate shleimus, tachlas shleimus of this, okay, so the shleimus, the ultimate of the wedding and mashpia makabel relationship of Bnei Yisrael, kaviyachol, has to be when Yisrael, when it is revealed that Yisrael and Kadosh Baruch Hu are one. Once Yisrael, the Bnei Yisrael, and Kadosh Baruch Hu Hashem are one, we see that that they don't really need Hashem to be mashpia and them to be the makabel, because really they're one. So this is expressed or hinted in the Chodesh HaShlishi, right? Shashlishi mar al chibur v'ayichad de'alyan v'tachtan k'fi shenasa matzias achas, right? So 3, you have 1, which is 1, 2, which is 2 separate things. 3 is the connection of 2 to be 1. Okay, so the Yodad and Tesvav is the filling up of the moon, right? The moon really gets full and fluffy and whole and round. And when we talk about it in the third month, what?
Fluffy.
Fluffy. Yeah. Hold on. So Chodesh Shlishi is the Yom Chasunasai, the wedding day of Bnei Yisrael and Hashem. V'ar halavana kara chama shalavana kishnas zil ein etzir chalakal me'achama kimat shenasis be'emtza k'ma'achama shezehu inid Yisrael k'shberchu chad. So they don't. So the makabel, the moon, the Bnei Yisrael don't need to be receiving to be makabel from the sun, because they are one. Once they're one, there's no issue of being mashpia makabel. They're just one. V'amekeser mutikesh any be kaimai sihara be'ashlamasa. So we see this even more with the moon taking its full light in the middle of the month. The Chodesh Kislev in Chodesh Kislev, Yeser Chodesh Sivan. This is greater. This is a higher level, and it's like over Sivan, which is Chodesh Shlishi. So we have the third month, Sivan, third month. Kislev, this month is greater than Sivan. How? Let's just look at the difference. Because the winter months and the summer months, what's the difference? The summer months are v'chaim hashemash. In the summer months, we have the heat and the warmth of the light of the sun in its strength, in its most strongest, most powerful way. And then in the winter, we have the cold and the days. Obviously, one second. All right. So we have basically in the summer we have long days, long hot days, and in the winter we have short cold days, and long nights. Right. If you want to compare the days and the nights in the winter are much longer than in the summer. V'ikar tamtis kol ha'artzos. Eretz HaKodesh, v'inyanei b'avayis v'chadshei hakayitz, mudgesh be'ikar hagila d'shemesh havaya, chama ma'amata, mash'en kim b'chadshei charef, mudgeshes be'ikar avodas shel Yisrael ma'ata ma'ala. So the idea of practically the sun shines in the summer, and in the winter it shines a lot less, and it's a lot less warm and a lot less. So the representation of the sun being warm and overtaking and being hot, and a lot of sunlight for many, many, many hours is an expression and a representation of light coming down from Hashem, the Shemesh Havaya, the Gilui of Shemesh Havaya, the revelation of the light of Hashem, from above to below. And then in the winter, we are expressing and representing the light that we do and the work that we do from down here to up there. And therefore, what is so great about the fullness of the moon? What is so great about the fullness of the moon? In Kislev. Hello.
Sorry. Hey, sorry. I don't know what happened.
No, it's all good. So what's so great about the light here? And we'll finish off with this thought here. What is so great about the light that is the climax of the viewing of the light, the way that we can see it in the middle of the month of Kislev, is that the work in Kislev and the work in the winter is from our own efforts of the Bnei Yisrael, the moon, because the moon gets a lot more time in the winter, many more hours, from the light of the work that we do here, and the it's almost to the point where the sun becomes like a, no, sorry. No, one nigger dan hakilek the mashriya makawam mamela harizat dan shlemis al talaban confusion kabas min hama or the kind of finish she's for convention it carry with sad that doesn't show Israel. This is the tachos shlemis the Nisolian shades of life which must be makaba all life which makaba nasa command must be. So here we're not talking about the wedding happened. So during a wedding, the expression of the mashpia and the makaba. So
Hey,
hello.
I missed.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened, but I missed that last. I'm so sorry. I hope that doesn't
it's all
happen
good.
again.
Yeah,
What was your
good.
last? What was your last
So,
thought?
Basically, that the winter represents the work of our work down here, and the summer represents like receiving from Hashem. So the fullness of the moon happens as a result of the work of us down here, representing the moon. Excuse me. And when we move away from the idea of the wedding day, right, where there's like the mashpia and the makabel, and the more work that the makabel is doing in the winter months, specifically in Kislev, it comes to a point where the makabel becomes like the mashpia because of all the work they're putting in and all the light they're getting. So the light of the moon in the middle of the month when it's complete in Kislev is much more powerful in a way than Sivan when the wedding of Bnei Israel and Hashem is celebrated, because it's almost taking their relationship to the next level.
Wow.
Yes.
Beautiful. So I guess we have to end off, but
yeah.
First of all, thank you. And
absolutely.
I guess the message once again is that, you know, we're always searching for the light and the clarity and the perfection and like, you know, the spiritual high, and when everything's like good, which represents, you know, really that's a lower level, and the higher level is when we find Hashem like in the physical, in the darkness, in the lack of clarity, in the uncertainty, and like go deeper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I honestly, like, I'm just so blown away by like how the moon is so elevated and so much of a team player. Like, that's just like, whoa, like the moon is so important. Such a team player. It's such a, like, a few times the Rebbe says that the moon becomes a mashpia in a real way. And it's like, whoa.
Right.
So it's like everything that we've always known, like, it's just not the reality. It's like when we mentioned like the idea of like the R and the etzem, like we it's kind of like an optical illusion. And once you see the truth, and once you see what you're really seeing, it's like, wait, it's totally different.
Yeah, I'm just thinking also like, and then we'll go. I actually also really have to go, but I'm just thinking like the relationship with Hashem, like the Gullus relationship, where it's like the moon, where there's times that like we feel clear and we feel good and we feel strong, and in a way, when we feel clear and good and strong, it's like when the moon is shining more, that's in a way we feel less connected to Hashem because we don't have to dig as much. And then then there's times when we're struggling and we're disconnecting, we don't feel strong, and then we have to go deeper and connect to Hashem in a deeper way. But that like Mashiach times, it's like that back and forth and struggle and cycle won't be there anymore. It will just be consistent. We'll just constantly feel Hashem, see Hashem, like be one with Hashem inside of us, so that cycle won't be there anymore. We'll just be in our full light. But I guess like the question in terms of us and like the moon, and our relationship with Hashem, like we're going to be that oneness with Hashem, where we're so connected that we still feel like our own person, but yet we're so clear that like we're nothing without Hashem. But yet like the moon has its own light, but is it going to be reflecting still from the sun? I'm just trying to make that comparison. That's just what I'm thinking about.
No, actually, first of all, it's interesting that you said that, because that's the idea of three. Three is the ultimate, because it's not one, it's not two, it's three, which means that they're all connected, but they all have their own like greatness. But the shleimus, I think we said this in the beginning of the sikha, that the shleimus of the like the tachlis shleimus of the moon is when it's going to have its own light, and then they're going to be two, and they're each going to have their own crown. But here, as they're working together, they're sharing one crown.
Yeah, I mean, we could, I guess, we're bringing about it more at another point, like what that means for us and Hashem, because I'm curious, because we don't have our own light. Like our light is, we become whole when we allow Hashem to work through us, and we become one with Hashem in that way. So I'm curious about that connection.
Right. Yeah, I think it's also just a matter of like getting the syntax right. Like it's the same thing, but just said in a different way, I feel like.
Yeah. Okay, well, amazing.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Well, we'll speak soon. Have a great
Yes.
all the best.
Thank you. You too. Yeah.